Hi there. This is Not Invented Here, a show about tech, product development, and business. And I'm your host, Dima Malenko. Hello, this is Dima again, and a couple more things that I did not invent. You may recall that I ended the last episode with a description of how I approach things I don't understand or don't like or think are stupid. And already after I've published the episode, I came across a nice tweet. I'm not sure if it's a quote of Dave Gray. He's an author of the book called Liminal Thinking. I'm not sure if it's the quote from a book or from his speech somewhere, maybe, but it captures precisely my way of thinking about situations when I think somebody is doing something stupid. And the quote goes, "People act in a way that makes sense to them. If their behavior does not make sense to you, you're probably missing something." That's exactly how I approach situation. If I don't understand why somebody is doing something, I always assume I'm missing something, and I try, if it's important enough, I try to find what I'm missing. And this approach will help us today. I'm sure you've heard about Apple revealing their new set of phones, new design with revolution. No, they didn't say revolutionary this time, I guess. I don't remember. I don't think so. iPhone X and family of iPhone 8 devices. And of course, there were lots of comments from left and right on Facebook and Twitter. And there were two groups of comments which impressed, I guess, impressed me the most. And I'll try to address both of them. First is people saying that, hey, they did this thing X. I don't need X. I have no use for it, or I don't see myself using it. Therefore, the phone is bad. The new release is bad. They've now lost their magic, and therefore they're doomed. Okay, the doomed part is my exaggeration here, but that was a very common type of comment I saw around the internet after the presentation, where many people were saying that, hey, they did this stupid quote unquote thing, and I don't understand why they did it. I don't understand who needs it. I don't need it. The phone is bad. There are two important things to unpack here in this particular regard. iPhone, no doubt, at this day and age, is a mass market product. And when we deal with mass market product, we have to understand that the difference in needs and wants of the people who comprise that mass market can be vastly different. There will be no single feature in any mass market product that will appeal to everybody in that mass market. And I intentionally say mass market every time because because it's the mass of the market which is important here. No matter how clever you are, when you're introducing a feature in mass market product, there certainly will be people who need and like this feature, and there certainly will be people who don't need and don't like this feature. But it would be not wise of them to think that if they don't need this feature, then nobody needs it, and therefore the device is bad. This is the fate of mass market product. It will always have features which are appealing to someone and are not appealing to someone. And in the end of the day, the success of product is determined by the balance or by good combination of different features, so that anyone in that mass market could find something appealing to him. And among all of the features introduced with new phones, we can specifically look at one feature. I think it is only available with the newest and greatest iPhone X, or rather will be available with the newest and greatest iPhone X, and that feature is animated emojis or animojis. To be frank, during the presentation, I also thought that this is kind of stupid. Who would? Yeah, it's funny. It's. I think it would be a lot of fun for me, maybe to send talking dog face to someone, but that's about it. And I was a little stumbled by this feature. I didn't give it too much thought at that time, but later on I came to know that turns out that iMessage, the Apple's messaging platform, is huge, is like really huge among American teenagers. It is, and I found a great article which presents an analysis of the messaging apps market, and there they say that actually iMessage has the most number of teenagers comparing to other messaging platforms like even Messenger and Snapchat. And from that perspective, this Animoji thing is a brilliant move by Apple. Because remember, iPhone is a mass market product. It is also aimed at those teenagers that are using iMessage. And I'm sure this feature will be huge with them. They will be sending those talking faces left and right when they can get hands on their new iPhone 10s, or maybe subsequent generations of iPhone. And from that perspective, that feature makes a lot of sense to me, because you want to be appealing to people who today cannot yet decide which smartphone they get, because parents have to buy them smartphones, and most likely they would get previous generation of iPhone when their parent gets new iPhone, like every year after Apple's presentation. But by the time those people, those teenagers, will be able to decide for themselves which smartphone to get and pay for that smartphone with their own money, they will be hooked to Apple's product. And from that perspective, this is a brilliant move. And again, this illustrates the whole situation. I thought that something was stupid. I didn't understand it in the beginning, but later on I came to know more information about what's going on there. And with that information, the feature that Apple added made a lot of sense to me. There was the first type of a command when people said that Apple adds features they don't need and therefore nobody needs those features. The second thing is, I think it happens every year, like people say that Apple stopped innovating or didn't innovate enough. And here I'd like to remind everybody that the last time I checked, the Apple's name was Apple Incorporated. It was not Apple Research Lab or Apple Non-Profit Research Institute or something like that. Their success is not measured by the amount of innovation. Their success is measured by the number of products they sell and the revenues they get, because they're a for-profit business. So they are not in the business of innovation. They're in the business of selling product. And from that perspective, what they have to do, what they need to do, is to come up with such products that they will be able to sell with large quantity, and the products that they will be able to produce in quantities enough to meet the demand for those products. So they're not in a business of innovation. They're in a business of producing, of creating and designing products which they will be able to sell. And if we take into account that Apple now commands around 60% of high-end smartphone market, I'm just not sure if it's global or in the US, but I would think, looking at the chart I have in front of me, I think that's those are numbers for global market, not US only. So that's even better. So they command around 60% of high-end smartphone sales in the world. That's a little bit of a stretch, and the math gets a little bit wonky here. But for the reason of keeping it simple, we can kind of assume that around 60% of those people who will be looking to buy their next smartphone already have Apple smartphone. And since this is a 10th year in iPhone's history, they likely have maybe iCloud data and iCloud plans, iCloud data plans with Apple. They've bought a number of applications that they use frequently. So they are those 60% are already pretty much integrated into the Apple ecosystem. And in the situation where more people already have Apple smartphones, it makes all the sense for Apple to make sure that in the first place, those people will not switch, will not jump the ship, and will buy the next Apple smartphone. So therefore, Apple has to produce a new device which will be better than the previous smartphone those people had. And both iPhone 8 and iPhone 10 are clearly better than now previous generation of Apple smartphones, which are iPhone 7 and iPhone 7 Plus. And those new smartphones, they should be able to sell to current smartphone owners when they decide to upgrade their device. And only after that, we should start talking about whether users of Android phones will jump their ship and rush to Apple smartphone ecosystem. But when Apple already has those 60% of the market, their first task is to keep those 60%, and the second task is to grow them, or try to grow them. And from that perspective, they again do everything right. They produce a solid product, which is a solid update over current generation, and it will very likely sell well to current users of Apple products. Will it sell? Will it make people switch from their Android phones to iPhones? It's hard to tell for me, but I think Apple is doing, again, everything right here. And if you take this into your consideration, then you wouldn't emphasize perceived lack of innovation in current crop of iPhones that much. Well, I guess that's it for today. That's all I wanted to share with you. And I hope you found this interesting. I'll be very curious to know what you think about what I've said and about my way of thinking about new Apple release. And you can always find me in Twitter. I'm at Dimalenko there. You can find me on Facebook, or you can leave a comment under this episode on my site, dimalenko.org. And that's it for today. Take care.